Our next conversation is titled Solar's Journey to Grid Parity and will be moderated by John R. Seydel, an honorary board member and trustee-elect for the Turner Foundation, committed to preventing damage to the natural systems, water, air, and land, on which all life depends. He has worked with campaigns and offices of Governor Hickenlooper, the former Colorado Senator Mark Udall. Additionally, John R. is the CEO and the founder of the Revolution Nature Network. He will be joined by fellow millennials, Kyle Sundman and Austin Rosenbaum. Please welcome our next panelist.
All right. Well, thank you, Leilani. Big fan, and keep killing it out there. I'm born in Atlanta. I guess NASCAR was kind of stereotypically in my blood, but Leilani's definitely taken it to a whole nother level, so keep up the good work. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here with some fellow classmates of mine from the University of Denver, fellow Pios, Austin and Kyle, and we're representing grid parity and how it applies to solar. And so something to be excited about is that I wanted to start with, it takes, for anybody who isn't familiar with solar or with grid parity, solar takes not just a business perspective, not just an engineering perspective, but also a political perspective. And I think that trifecta is represented across this wonderful panel we have here. Austin is not only just an MBA student, but also an engineering student, and has done a lot of amazing work in Nepal and for University of Denver's research on grid parity. And Kyle is a fellow business partner with DU Solar and just graduated and got his MBA from University of Denver. And and then obviously you got me that represents the political side with my bachelor in political sciences. So I like to think that we're the trifecta that's going to be able to explain what grid parity is. And I think it would be most appropriate to start with Austin here and let him explain a little bit about what grid parity is.
Right, thanks, John. So grid parity, well, first, thanks, Chips, for having us all out here. It's great to be a part of this. So solar grid parity really is when the price of electricity from a solar power producing plant is less than or equal to the cost of electricity from your traditional generation, like coal or natural gas. And if you can really visualize that, if you can look on the x-axis of a graph, you see the time, and on the y-axis you see the cost, and you can see the escalation of fuel costs historically. So there's an upward trend with the cost of electricity from traditional generation, and then there's the downward costs of solar generation. And so where they intersect, that price point, that is the grid parity point. So anything to the right of the grid parity point on that graph makes it financially viable to invest in solar. And you can use grid parity across any of the different types of smart grid initiatives that we're taking. But here we're going to talk about solar specifically.
Yeah, and so it's obviously very exciting. Grid parity can obviously, for people who aren't familiar with the solar sector or renewables, period, can be like, whoa, what does that mean? And so what we are here to do is simplify and really basically analyze the different factors that affect solar and its ability to be implemented cheaper than transmission and what it's going to take to get there. And so going with Kyle, I know we talked about a lot of different factors that really heavily influence this, and I wanted you to go into, with your experience, what you think about it.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, Chip, for having us, and everybody who's put their blood, sweat, and tears into this. Maybe behind the scenes, Abby Stern, for example, really has done an incredible job, so thank you to her and all the volunteers. Yeah, really excited to be here chatting with you guys about solar and the grid parity. So, we have this kind of technical definition of grid parity that Austin just went into. And I kind of like to think of it in a little bit of a bigger picture. It's almost verbiage or a driver of understanding that this is when solar is kind of becoming adopted on a mass scale. So it is tangibly when it's cheaper to buy solar energy than it is to buy energy from the grid, but it's also, at that point, you're going to have achieved such incredible economies of scale, just in the general industry, that I think we're going to be seeing a lot of different angles coming at it, just in terms of how we think about the grid in general and where we're getting our sources from. And it's totally different. I mean, the grid parity the factors range from everything from location to utilities to the climate of the location where it is. And so it's interesting, and I think we're going to kind of delve into, as John mentioned, some of the factors that go into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, I came here for the first time 6 years ago, and it was before we had a business case. It was more of a moral cause, and but you could see the potential in it, and you could see how the improving economies of scale with being able to produce more with cheaper materials with solar, and you're starting to see that not just in the solar industry, but also battery storage, which we all know is going to be a really big implementation to reaching grid parity as soon as possible. So kind of continuing on this conversation with economies of scale and other factors that affect grid parity, Austin, go ahead.
Right, so the three main factors that I'm seeing as the driving force for grid parity are the forecast of inevitable rising gas prices and carbon-associated costs, ongoing improvements in solar technology, which is leveraging economies of scale. So if we build out these systems bigger and larger, the more we learn about the technology, the cheaper the cost will go. That can be applied across all different sorts of markets. I'm sure you guys have heard of learning curves. But that's exactly what we're talking about here, about making these investments cheaper. And this is the curve that we're seeing as prices go down, 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 all the way to the grid parity point. The last piece is the wholesale electricity price. As many of you probably know, different states have different prices, and even within that, locational marginal pricing dictates different prices at different nodes for a deregulated market. So that at one place in a state, and one region of a state, it may be cheaper, electricity may be cheaper, and it may not be financially viable to build your solar power plant there. But in another region of the state, the prices may be exponentially higher, so you can build your power plant there. So that's where the grid parity comes into this play, where it's like different places. You know, it's not about when the price is right, but where the price is right.
And it's not just environmental altruism, although it might be very much an intention of anybody who's supporting the use of solar energy to be conscious of saving the planet. But it really, coming from the business point of view, the numbers have to be there. And the interesting thing is, as you take the idea of grid parity and expand upon it into kind of an international level, you see different companies moving into developing markets. Off-Grid Electric just secured $45 million of debt financing, traditional debt financing, to bring power to Tanzanian villages. And so we're talking grid parity in terms of an investment vehicle, or rather talking about grid parity in the United States when you have to consider things like storage and the demand charges and everything. But as you move into a developing nation where you don't have any type of infrastructure already, it's a really awesome thing to be able to have solar energy to take them kind of from zero to hero, I guess.
Absolutely, and it's very applicable for American Renewable Energy Day. Obviously, we've been talking about how it applies to our own country, but I know Austin here worked in Nepal doing these types of projects, so I'd like to expand on that international capacity.
Right, so going out of the bounds of the United States, the world of energy looks entirely different, as many of you know. Grids in Nepal are down and up all the time, so wherever you are based, you may have power at one moment, and in the next hour you may not. It's just a matter of there's not enough supply to meet the demand. So there's a lot of opportunity here for solar initiatives, all kinds of distributed initiatives, and I think personally we're going to skip the traditional models and we're going to go straight to these high-tech, low cost, high efficiency models, and I think that's where ultimately the success will be in the third world or the international boundaries.
Yeah, and I think you could even add on that, and that's why a lot of utilities that are pushing back on this, it's because it's disrupting the normal revenue cycle. And obviously you're going to have pushback when you're disrupting the cash cow of an entire industry, especially multi-trillion-dollar industry. And so I think it definitely applies to not just how it works internationally, but also how distributed energy is starting to disrupt utility models around the United States, and obviously seeing it in Europe, and some new models pop up in Germany. You're starting to see, especially with transactional and transition grids, with the capacity to use smart grids to be able to sell back on to that grid and sell, and you'd be able to buy. And so, I mean, I'd love to hear your comments on that as well.
Right. Well, one of the big pieces of this is battery storage, as we talked about earlier. Battery storage is a big piece of this grid parity discussion. Ultimately, battery storage is what allows us to replace traditional generation on a 1-for-1 megawatt basis with our PV. We can't do that without battery storage. This whole big picture hinges on battery storage. And we need it because if we can increase all the solar penetration all we want, but we're still left with a peak shift in demand. So if we look at our demand curve, it's only shifted, the peak demand is only shifted to 6 p.m. instead of being at 4 p.m. So we still have to make up for that extra shift with our coal or with our gas peaking units, our base generation, all that stuff. We still need those units. So without battery storage, we absolutely need it. And an interesting fact is from one of my company's recent studies with over 200 investor-owned utilities, only 25% are utilizing battery storage technology. So that means that there's an amazing opportunity for the other 75% for current projects, ongoing projects, to take off.
And that's very interesting because I worked for Southern Company's R&D department, and their #1 expenditure check it was battery storage. And they're spending millions and millions of dollars trying to come up with a revenue model to be able to compete when people are going to be able to produce 90% of their own energy. So you could probably see why there's a little bit of pushback. Obviously, when you're covering something as big of an industry as the utility sector, energy sector, we're talking $6 to $7 trillion. This is something that's obviously needs that disruption, and they can either adjust politically and adapt and be leaders in that economy, or I fear, kind of like Tony Seba would say, that those utilities are going to be in big trouble, and their shareholders.
Right. It's kind of another interesting point in terms of segueing towards how we're going to get to this grid parity, and it's unfortunate, but there's a lot of politics that go into whether or not legislation is passed and models are implemented where grid parity or solar in general can be a positive catalyst for change. And it's interesting. It's a lot, in my opinion, about how you frame the conversation. So it's in terms of this political polarization. You think about this election cycle, and that's a totally different topic here. But in general, I mean, it shouldn't be it shouldn't be a red and blue issue. It should be something that this is the freedom to choose what kind of energy you want, where you want to get your energy from. And it's definitely not a Republican or a Democrat type thing. And so if you pitch this as less environmental altruism and more of policies that have tax breaks in more of a conservative mind, or the freedom to choose, I think that's a really important message in kind of how to market the industry of solar to get us to this grid parity.
Absolutely, and I think there's a couple models that it's unfortunate that mass media didn't actually cover it. But in my own state of Georgia, where Georgia Power is the sole utility company that can buy or sell power, the only one, and it took the only thing that actually regulates Georgia Power is the Public Service Commission, and the Public Service Commission is made up of 9 different members, and it took a Green Tea Party, which, if you don't know what that is, it's Tea Partiers, Bubba McDonald, and Debbie Dooley coming together with Sierra Club, LCV, Solar Job Advocates, and really pushing for the PSC to push. Basically, it's not a renewable portfolio standard, but to have 700 megawatts by 2018. And though they would disagree probably on everything else, this is the one thing that they can agree on. And it was pitched to them saying, you should have the choice to be able to put solar on your own rooftop. You should be able to produce your own energy if you want to. Why are utilities outlawing that? And obviously, Sierra Club, Solar Job Advocates have their own reasons. But being able to paint that language in a way where you can actually get moderate, or even on the other side of the aisle completely, on the same board, this is a no-brainer, but it needs to be done on a massive scale, not just stopping at Georgia, even though Georgia, I think, is a pretty good example for it.
Arizona actually has something similar. It's not a PUC. It's the Arizona Corporate Commission. It's just a 5-member elected body that oversees the regulations for energy that also includes, obviously, solar. And this guy, Barry Goldwater Jr., did the same sort of thing. And he just pitched it, created something, I'm forgetting the acronym, but something like, what is it? Tusk. Yeah, like
Thanks, Jeff.
You can't. Yeah, solar can't be killed, right? And so it's such a, I mean, it's a hilarious thing, but it's him coming from the other side, and that really helped the whole discussion in terms of enlightening a more conservative thinking mindset in terms of the benefits to solar beyond. And again, you know, once it becomes to grid parity, the beauty of it is that it doesn't even, it's not really a political thing at all anymore. It's just, if you're smart with your pocketbook, you're going to procure your power from the cheapest source, which is what they're doing now with coal and things like that. But it's, once you're on parity, it's like, it's not an argument, and you've kind of won, I guess.
And you could see why it's so important to have knowledge going into this for obviously all the economies of scale, the politics, and as well as the location of these solar policies to meet grid parity, because they all are huge factors in how quick we will reach grid parity. And in fact, referring back to Tony Seba again, reaching God parity. And God parity is that point where the production of electricity is actually cheaper than the cost of transmission. So even if the energy production is 0 cents, completely for free, the cost of transmission 1 to 2 cents, you'd be able to actually make your own electricity cheaper than the cost of transmission. And that's the day that you're going to see a lot of different utilities fall or really take a leadership role in this.
Right.
And so I know you have some comments. So.
Right. So I think the wild card here is innovation, creativity, technology, and the finance of this whole thing. But when we think about the creativity, we need to put a fresh new look on this energy, on this big picture of energy, and spin them in a lot of directions that traditional utilities haven't thought about yet. For example, the Community Solar Garden project, or projects that go on across the nation, account for a small fraction, or a medium-sized amount of the solar projects that are ongoing today. But they offer a unique option for people who don't have the ability to put rooftop solar on their house. They allow you to subscribe to a garden and get your power indirectly from that source, and then you're able to get your solar power and clean green energy at an affordable cost that is less than or equal to what you're paying from the utility. So it just makes sense that we need to think about these models that we're using and put just a slight spin on them so that we can make them attractive and somewhat sexy. That's a big part of this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to give a clap to that, because that's really the key, right? That's really the key, making it sexy, and not just the people in this room, but making it sexy for, especially, Carla called it out yesterday, for the communities, for the infrastructure developments, for the millions of jobs that would be created from a new smart grid infrastructure, from distributed solar in low-income communities, making electricity and empowerment affordable, and really making it sexy, making it exciting. And I thank you so much for everybody in this room for who came into this with the moral cause before it was cool and before you had the business case. Because the only reason why we're here right now is because people were willing to battle and put everything on the line before there was even a business case. And so now that we have this business case with solar, and we're actually looking at grid parity, and we're talking about grid parity, which is pretty darn exciting for me, starting 6 years ago and seeing the progress that we have now. It's a super, super exciting time to live in. And I think it's going to be really exciting, especially to get more young people into political office, getting behind a lot of these issues that promote climate action and that promote real action on making a renewable energy infrastructure, making 50% by 2030, 100% by 2050. It's got to happen. It's absolutely got to happen. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't happen, then we don't survive. And so what's a better motivation than that? All cards on the table. We will literally, yeah. I promise you, if you look at it that way, it's all worth it. Getting out of bed in the morning, I'm not a morning person at all, but the next 30 years is going to define if, our species and all species are going to survive this sixth massive extinction that we're going into. But we are just in the nick of time. And so I know everybody in this room, including the young people, that I have to give it up to Chip for doubling the amount of young people participating, and not just the panels, but the audience as well. And as we learn to diversify our audience and bring in more people from local communities that we will be implementing these technologies on, and really lead this, and really make it sexy, as you were saying, Austin, and make it affordable, make it sexy, make it cool, and make a win-win-win situation.
Yeah, just to kind of echo what John's saying, we hope that you can see that throughout this conference and the panel that there's millennials out here who we're not lazy, we're not entitled, and we're here and we're ready to rock, we're ready to roll, and we recognize and we thank you. We appreciate though so very much our role in this, in recognizing that everybody in this room has laid the foundation. We want to let you know that we're here to take what you've given us and for everybody. So, thanks to everyone. So give yourselves a round of applause.
So I know we have about 8 minutes left, and so what I wanted to do was just let my friends here conclude, and then we can open it up for Q&A.
Well, I'm in this for sure. I just graduated, as John said, and I did the only practical thing. I bought a one-way ticket to Guatemala, so I'm leaving at 6 in the morning on Saturday, and I'm excited to feel out the industry. I'm really passionate about renewable energy, obviously, in developing countries. So, casual plug: if anybody has some connections down in Central America, love to hear about them. And I just want to thank you again for having me, and thanks, John and Austin. So,
Yeah.
Cheers.
So I think that this whole distributed renewable resources, including solar, is part of a big picture. I think we need to stop looking at the details and start looking at the big picture. And as Chip does a great job of bringing all the different parties together and uniting us to talk about the big picture, we need to focus on that more, and we need to focus on our cities especially. Look at smart cities and look at the ways that we can integrate these awesome technologies that we have developing all around us and put them all together, put our heads together, put all the minds together and all those projects together so that they can work seamlessly. That's the biggest piece of this, is that nothing is working seamlessly in terms of the innovation. I mean, maybe some utilities would disagree, but I think that's the biggest part where we need to work on. So that's where I want to work on. I want to make it sexy, I want to make it fun, and I want to make it work seamlessly.
Absolutely. And so obviously these guys aren't shy. Pios aren't shy. So if you obviously talk to these guys, they're super rock stars. And obviously we're looking for mentorships. We're looking for people that we can help in any way.
Jobs, perhaps.
After he gets back from Guatemala. And so thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much, Chip and Sally, for giving us a voice. And I'm looking forward to making this young people presence more and more every year, because we have the energy. We have the energy, and so we're excited to roll in this. We're excited to go to the steps of Congress and actually make this thing happen. And it's only going to be possible if we unite with everybody in this room, the communities that are affected by this, and the people on the other side of the aisle as well. So thank you so much, and have a great lunch.
Questions? Questions?
So it's not over yet. It's not over yet. We get Q&A, and I'm going to be the first Q, and you guys can all be the A. But first of all, I want to thank John R. and Austin and Kyle for getting up here and being our luncheon keynote. And I actually got my first question is: would you mind each of you? I have two questions. The first one: would you tell us how old you are?
23.
All right.
22.
23.
Hey.
46. What?
So that's some leadership. And John R., I want to thank you for joining the AREI board.
Absolutely.
You're our youngest member, and your leadership is much needed. All of your leadership is much needed. So the question I have is, how do we engage every other 22 and 23-year-old on the planet, not just in America, on this issue? And that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to answer this?
Yeah,
I can definitely do it.
Whoever wants.
Yeah, so I think using our ability to be connected through the different types of technology and the different types of youth summits that are coming around that are pushing not just for renewable energy development and a sustainable future, but all the sustainable development goals. Because it would be foolish to just focus on one or two. We gotta get all these sustainable development goals done by 2030. And the only way we're going to do that is taking people in each community from different countries that specialize in different things, but being able to show that, I mean, all the SDGs are inherently connected. And being able to get people from each community on this that's absolutely key. And so if you'd allow me as a new AREI board member, I'd like to continue to keep on bringing young people to represent not just at this, but also to participate, to speak, to give their own stories in their community. And I obviously we already have some great millennials here that have different networks than I do, but that's the beauty of it. We have a lasting network, and so I mean, just keep on bringing them in.
John, do you by chance have any sort of mobile platform or anything that might be engaging for?
Thank you for the plug. Yeah, so I mean, for people who weren't there for our 4 o'clock panel yesterday, they moved us up because they wanted to make sure that this was a really energetic lunch. So I run the Revolution Nation Network. I founded it, and what we do is we give advocacy tools to businesses, NGOs, individuals, and especially impact directors for impact media. And basically, we tie these advocacy tools straight to your representatives, whether it's your city councilman all the way up to your federal representatives, taking you less than 30 seconds to actually hold them accountable through a direct Facebook post, direct tweet, direct email, and a phone call. And after you've already done the whole sign-up process, it's not an app. After you've done the sign-up process, you never have to do it again, and it takes you 1 second to press a button on whatever you're passionate about. And so if anybody likes that, come and talk to me, because I love running social good campaigns, not just for renewable energy, but anything that touches the amelioration of poverty or any of the SDGs. So thanks, Kyle.
Yeah,
Really
I just wanted to add a couple of things to Chip's question. I think you need to identify the thought leaders, the people who are the energy thought leaders. People like Elon Musk, they need to be illuminated in front of the public and really change the way that we look at this. And Elon Musk is doing a great job of making things sexy, right? He's taking Tesla, all these great things. He just bought out Solar City today. I mean, he is the face right now in my mind of, from the consumer's perspective, the renewable energy, EV build out.
Right.
And we need more people like that to step up. And maybe there's people amongst us today that will do that. Maybe some of the millennials, maybe some of the older generations, but maybe they'll step up and become a part of that and to really lead it and become, the leaders for the face of what the sexy energy technology will be.
Yeah.
Elon Musk actually, I'm not sure if people know this, but he actually tried to spell sexy with his line of cars. The Model S, there was going to be the Model E, but had a little debacle with Ford about that. Model X, right, Y. I mean, we're talking about making it sexy, like he literally is.
I learn something new every day. And I would say that it doesn't just stop with millennials. It goes into Gen Z as well. And children feel like they don't have a voice, but it's actually pretty ironic because the children who are willing to be courageous and stand up on stage to testify and really hold these leaders accountable actually, in my opinion, have a lot more pull and a lot more sway. And so we got to make sure that we're not just creating models of thought leaders, we're actually creating models in the doers, and starting at the youngest ages possible, and that can understand this. And so that's really key. I mean, yeah, you can vote when you're 18, but politicians should, give a darn about people that are less than the age of 18, because they're the world that they're growing up in, and those are the politicians that are making the world that they're growing up in. And so it's not just the thought leaders, but the doers across generations, older, ours, and now that I'm 23, it's like starting to, get up, and then it's like
He's having back problems.
yeah, back problems, like shoulder, and so get these young people really empowered, because it's and I'm talking about 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. I mean, we had right, yeah, that's the way you got to do it. So on top of bringing in millennial leadership, I think it'd be good. I mean, we had one more generation kids last year, but to also bring in some more powerful and
Preschoolers,
well-spoken.
powerful preschoolers.
Powerful preschoolers. I like that. Coin that. And that's the way it's going to happen. And I think that's the way you get a lot of burn, too, for any type of media. You know, we're trying to get people to watch the live stream. Get some young people out here telling people the truth. I guarantee you that's how you get a lot of views. Yeah, sorry, I've been just talking.
John over here.
Bring some sexy Latinas.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I will never, yeah. And don't feel limited to, you know, just this event. You can bring them to everything.
Savannah, he's kidding.
Yeah.
So I got a question following up on Chip's about activating the college students. So before I was in college, the Vietnam War was going on, and there were people all over college campuses, big marches, burning stuff, getting killed at Kent State. Right. When I was in college, it was the whole apartheid thing it was original divest sort of thing. Right. Now, the college kids, you guys are like by far the outliers. And an example of that is last year or the year before, we were having a divest-invest movement at the University of Colorado. And right outside the building that we were meeting were people laying on US 36, blocking traffic because of the Black Lives Matter stuff that had just been going on in Baltimore. And so I'm sitting with about 25 college students who are looking to me for advice to what can we do to get out there and do the divest invest stuff and really mobilize the youth. And they're saying, well, this is going to take some time. We need to put together a plan and maybe by next year. And so what in the world does it take? It's you guys' future. Right. That this is going to really mostly impact, and why in the hell aren't you out there banging on the streets and marching every weekend and raising all sorts of cane about this?
So I think what we call that is necessary trouble. That's what John Lewis called what he was doing when he got arrested for the Civil Rights March and the Civil Rights Movement. I think what we're doing here is representing the civil rights and the moral cause of why we should be supporting a sustainable economy and the sustainable development goals and divesting from companies that harm humanity. It's as simple as that. And we have our different chapters for the divest movement across different colleges, but the platform Revolution Nation would actually unite those different organizations, different chapters with NGOs and with different businesses and celebrities to actually unite their lists and unite the people that follow them to actually make this thing happen. So people call that slacktivism, but slacktivism is going to be, I mean, it already works. It already works. I mean, people like, you know, they talk about, you know, their political problems all across social media, but if they're actually directed, we've already proven that there is enormous change starting in Colorado with Amendment 64. But if anybody wants to know that story, please come, and because that gave me inspiration to do what I'm doing now. I believe our panel is over. If y'all wanted to say anything, I kind of took a lot of these questions over, so that's not bad. Scream it.
Oh. Test. I'd just like to revisit, I believe it was Chip's question, about how to get young people involved in these kinds of events and renewable energy in general. I think it's really important to allow people of all walks of life to access conferences such as these and be involved. I know that I'm very thankful to be able to volunteer here. I don't have the funding to buy a ticket every year, and so it's really awesome that I can come and listen to all this, learn, network, meet all the amazing people here, and all that I really have to do is, you know, give a hand. It's great. Yeah. And you know, I know Kyle, we went to high school together. It's been amazing meeting you and all the other young people here, but just getting the opportunity to do these kind of things, whether it's an internship or volunteering or just education. It's great when people come and give speeches at colleges and that kind of thing. It's really helpful. So it's just something I wanted to throw in.
Well, thank you. I think, I mean, I don't know if we're probably ending right now. It says end, please. But I don't think that was a question either. I think that was just a statement.
Yeah.
But know that it's definitely a priority for us to get a diverse set of generations, a diverse set of cultures and different communities represented. And, you know, Ask me about it next year. Anything y'all got to say?
Nah,
It's great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thank you.